Hello everyone and welcome to WWE What Could Be. Please take a trip with me to my fantasy booking mind pals as we think about what WWE could do with a future storyline. Now this week, after the spectacular finale to the Cruiserweight Classic, I can only start to wonder, my god, how is the WWE going to screw up the Cruiserweights this time? So I thought I'd help the big W out by giving them an idea of how they can introduce the Cruiserweights and not bury them. This is WWE What Could Be, the Cruiserweights on Raw. Now, the rules for this one, much like last week, are going to be more of a vague timeline than concrete dates. Since WWE is on the kick of accelerated time clocks with so many pay-per-views here, it's really hard to fit a storyline in that short a time. Also, I'm only going to be using CWC participants, so no WWE talent that are cruiserweights, so no Adrian Neville, no Sami Zayn, and no Kalisto in this one. And finally, I'm only going to be using known signed CWC talent, so unfortunately, no Kota Ibushi, no Zack Sabre Jr. Now, before we get started, we need to take stock of what exactly we do have as far as talent. We do have 10 confirmed signed cruiserweights that are coming to Raw. However, I'm going to make one change, and that's Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano are actually going to stay in NXT because I like what they're doing with Team DIY, and I think they should finish their program with the Revival. That being said, as for the program of actually introducing the talent, it's relatively simple. You do just that. You introduce the talent. Slowly. You don't just plop all 8 remaining guys in the ring and say, oh, here are our cruiserweights, welcome to the Cruiserweight Revolution. I mean, my god, who would do something like that? Hashtag give cruiserweights a chance. And we're going to do just that. We're going to introduce these guys slowly and over time. Pretty much one new cruiserweight a week. And we're going to start slow, giving them just one match a week. So in the first opening segment, we're going to introduce our new Cruiserweight champion, TJ Perkins. Everyone's still high on him, everyone's still happy, and we're going to make TJ a fighting champion. He's going to be our standard bearer for this division. And basically, we're going to have TJ Perkins open Cruiserweight challenge. He's going to lay the belt out and say, anyone back there who wants this belt, come and get it. And this is where we're going to introduce Grand Metalik, mostly because we want to kind of get a weather gauge of how people are going to respond to Metalik. I know people are going to be pretty hot for Perkins, since his name's been out there for a while since the win. Metalik is a bit of an unknown quality. I know a lot of people wanted to win at the event, but that was mostly because TJ Perkins knocked off Ibushi. And this also gives us an ingrained storyline with Metalik saying, I didn't get to face you at 100% at the Classic, that title should be mine. Or we may need to have Maggle Cole explain that since Metalik can't really speak fluent English. These two have a great match. TJ comes out on top. The next week, the same thing happens. TJ issues an open challenge. We introduce a new cruiserweight. This time, we get a big pop as we introduce the returning Brian Kendrick. Everyone's happy to see Brian Kendrick back. Kendrick has a storyline going where he can basically say, that title should be mine because I fell to Ibushi. If you had been facing me in that semifinal round, it would have been a completely different result. They have a match, much different from the Metalik Perkins match the week before. We introduced this idea of Cruiserweight being this all-encompassing style. Next week, same thing. TJ's in the ring, issues an open challenge. Out comes Rich Swann. Again, we need to kind of weather gauge to see how people are going to respond. I think they'll be favorable to Swann, but he does need a bit of a slower introduction. Swann does have a storyline going in there with Perkins. Perkins did knock him out of the tournament, so who knows if maybe Swann would have been the champ. Again, great match. Different style of cruiserweight. This is where TJ Perkins really excels. He can fit all these different styles. Now, after about this first month, we can get to a point where we can start introducing a little bit of story into the cruiserweight division. Up front, we just want to introduce, this is the style they'll be working. It's exciting, it's high-flying, it's technical, it's great. Here's our champ. Here's some of his challengers. Now we can start laying the groundwork for story. Same thing, though. TJ says, all right, come at me, bro. And this time we have Cedric Alexander come out. Big pop, Cedric Alexander's internet darling. Please sign Cedric, still ringing in people's ears. Again, TJ and Cedric have a great match, a lot of high spots. It ends on a high spot, either a dive from Cedric or TJ hitting that kind of flying Hurricane Rana he did on Metalik in the Classic. Both men are outside, and they both get counted out. Now the next we can follow up with Cedric now wanting to chase the title. Hey, you never beat me, I want another crack. Brian Kendrick can come down and say, hey, no, you lost. Back of the line, we can set up a number 1 contenders match between Brian Kendrick and Cedric Alexander. Starting this week, we will be giving the Cruiserweights a second match on Raw, with Grand Metalik taking on a debuting Akira Tozawa. Now, Tozawa, I think, is going to play well in front of a live audience, mostly because of his howls. But we're going to have Metalik go over on Tozawa. We're going to kind of underbuild Metalik back up to facing Perkins, while Perkins is involved with the storyline with Cedric Alexander and Brian Kendrick. Then in the Cedric Alexander-Brian Kendrick number 1 contenders match, Cedric goes over on Brian, gets another shot at TJ Perkins the next week. The next week, the undercard cruiserweight match, Grand Metalik faces a debuting Noam Dar. really want to get a weather gauge on Noam Dar. I think he's got enough internet cred where people are going to be behind him, but I think he's also going to kind of feel like a knockoff Zack Sabre Jr. just a little bit. Again, Metallic's going to go over to build him up. Really, wins and losses don't hurt guys as much at this point in the division, but winning and stringing wins together for Metallic's really going to help, and it also helps him become more of a name and a known quantity that we're going to set on a collision course with the champ. In the Cedric Alexander TJ Perkins match, we are going to do a little bit of sports entertainment or pro wrestling, as the match isn't going to be able to get underway as a brawl breaks out between Brian Kendrick and Cedric Alexander, issuing TJ Perkins to say, hey, it doesn't matter to me who I fight, I'll fight you both at once. This sets up a triple threat match between the three. TJ Perkins goes over on Brian Kendrick. We want to keep him away from Cedric Alexander just for a little bit. Again, losses don't hurt anyone. The next week, we finally get our one-on-one match between Cedric Alexander and TJ Perkins. TJ finally knocks off Cedric, and in the undercard, we have Grand Metalik take on a debuting Jack Gallagher, someone I think is really going to do well, particularly with the more smarky crowds. And Metalik goes over on him, doesn't hurt Gallagher, and we move into this final month of this introductory phase, with Metalik being set up to take on Perkins, and the undercard kind of taking shape. You can either feed Perkins and Metalik if you think you've built this enough, or we can continue to have TJ issuing the open challenge, with this finally leading up to, say, the introduction of an Adrian Neville or a Sami Zayn. Overall, the real point of the Cruiserweights, where they're going to live or die, they need to be the match of the night every night. It needs to be something different that the WWE audience hasn't seen in a while. It's going to need a little bit of leeway from the USA Network and be allowed to take a few of the training wheels off that the main roster has, just so it feels different. And at its core, it should feel like a different product that is given time on a WWE show. I think the Cruiserweights can do great. I think TJ Perkins is the right choice for champion right now. I don't think you should change the belt too many times. But who am I kidding? What's really going to happen is we're going to start feeding these guys as jobbers to Braun Strowman or Bo Dallas. Well, that's just depressing. But as always, it's just fun to think, what could be?